Something good happened. Maybe you got the job, finished the project, received the praise. Someone looked at you and said, "You're exactly what we needed," and you smiled. And then, in the quiet moment after, a voice appeared. They don't really know you. If they did, they wouldn't think that. It's only a matter of time before they figure it out. You didn't invite that voice. You didn't choose it. But it arrived like it always does, right at the moment when things were supposed to feel good. And the unsettling part? The more you succeed, the louder it seems to get. Not quieter, louder. So why does achievement feel like danger? Why does the brain respond to success with suspicion instead of safety? That's what this video is about. And the answer is going to change how you understand yourself. Section 2, Problem Deep Dive. You've learned to perform confidence. You know the right words, the right posture. You can walk into a room and seem like you belong there. But inside, there is a constant background process running, a quiet audit. Do I actually know enough? Was that answer good? Or did they just not question it? What happens when they ask something I can't answer? This is not occasional self-doubt. This is a sustained internal investigation, always open, never resolved. The lived experience of feeling like a fraud has a specific texture. It is not the same as low confidence. In fact, it often lives inside people with high external competence. You do the work, often more than anyone else. Not because you love it, but because preparation feels like the only thing standing between you and being found out. You over-research before meetings you could run in your sleep. You minimize your contributions before anyone else can. Oh, I just got lucky. Anyone could have done it. It really wasn't that hard. These aren't false modesty. They are preemptive strikes. If you diminish yourself first, no one else can diminish you in a way that surprises you. It affects your decisions in ways that are hard to trace. You turn down opportunities that feel too large, not because you can't do them, but because larger opportunities mean higher stakes, and higher stakes mean more exposure, more chances to be seen as what you secretly believe you are. You stay just below the threshold of visibility, close enough to succeed, not so visible that the scrutiny becomes unbearable. And in relationships, especially with people you respect, you hold something back. Because if they saw the full picture, the uncertainty, the confusion, the things you still don't know, maybe they would recalculate. Maybe they would look at you differently. The exhaustion of this is real, not physical. The exhaustion of maintaining a version of yourself that feels borrowed. There's a word for this. Psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes named it in 1978. Impostor phenomenon. Not a disorder, not a weakness, a pattern. A specific documented pattern of thought that leads high-functioning people to discount their own competence and attribute their success to external factors, luck, timing, other people's misjudgment. And here is the first thing worth knowing about it. Research suggests it is extraordinarily common. Studies estimate that approximately 70% of people will experience it meaningfully at some point in their lives. You are not uniquely broken. You are part of a very large, very quiet majority. But that still doesn't explain why the brain does this. And until you understand the why, the pattern keeps running. Here's the reframe. Feeling like a fraud is not evidence that you are one. It is evidence that you care deeply about the gap between who you are and who you want to be. That gap is not shameful. It is the definition of growth. People who feel no gap, who never question whether they're enough, are not more competent. They are often less aware. The imposter feeling is almost always found in people with high standards, strong values, and genuine investment in doing things well. The feeling is not proof of inadequacy. It is, in a strange way, a signature of conscientiousness. But conscientiousness turned inward, without the right frame, becomes self-erosion. And that is what we need to address. Not by eliminating the self-awareness, by redirecting it. First, though, we need to understand what the brain is actually doing. Because what's happening underneath this feeling is more specific than most people realize. There are 3 mechanisms driving the imposter feeling. They work together, reinforcing each other in a loop. Understanding each one separately makes it possible to interrupt the cycle. Mechanism 1: attribute substitution and the luck narrative. The brain is constantly trying to explain events. Why did something happen? What caused this outcome? Psychologists call this causal attribution, and it comes in 2 primary forms. Internal attribution: I caused this. My ability, my effort, my choices. External attribution: this was caused by something outside me. Luck, timing, circumstances. Visual: 2 arrows, one pointing inward toward a figure, one pointing outward toward the world. For most people, success triggers internal attribution for positive outcomes. I worked hard. I prepared well. I earned this. But for people experiencing imposter phenomenon, the attribution process is reversed. Success gets assigned to external causes. I got lucky. The competition was weak. They misread me. Failure gets assigned to internal causes. I'm not smart enough. I never was. This asymmetry called self-serving attribution bias in reverse. A reality where nothing you do can become genuine evidence of your competence. Good outcomes don't count. They were luck. Bad outcomes count completely. They confirm what you suspected. The brain has essentially created a system where the verdict is decided before the evidence is examined. Mechanism 2. The competence paradox here is something quietly devastating. The more you learn about a subject, the more visible its complexity becomes. And the more visible the complexity, the more aware you are of what you don't know. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger documented the inverse of this. People with low competence in a domain tend to overestimate their ability because they don't yet know enough to recognize what they're missing. People with high competence tend to underestimate their ability because their expertise has made them fully aware of the field's depth. This means the more capable you become, the more likely you are to feel like you don't know enough. Not because you're falling behind, because you're advancing. Your awareness of the edges of your knowledge expands faster than most people's awareness of the center of theirs. The imposter feeling is, in part, the sensation of genuine expertise. It just doesn't feel that way from the inside. Mechanism 3. The childhood origin of the conditional self. The third mechanism is the oldest. Long before the job titles and the achievements and the performance reviews, the brain was learning a rule about what makes a person acceptable. In developmental psychology, researchers distinguish between unconditional positive regard, being valued simply for existing, and conditional regard, being valued for performance, compliance, or achievement. Many people who struggle with imposter phenomenon grew up in environments where regard felt conditional, where love and approval were present, but they seemed to follow results. Good grades, good behavior, meeting expectations. The child learns, I am not inherently enough. I become enough through what I do. This belief doesn't dissolve in adulthood. It goes underground. And then it resurfaces every time achievement is on the line. Because the nervous system learned early, success is not safe. Success means raising the bar. Success means more is now expected, and more expected means more chances to fall short. So the brain protects itself by never fully claiming the success. If I don't own it, I can't lose it. If I attribute it to luck, I don't have to maintain it. The imposter narrative is not self-destruction. It is a protection strategy, one that made sense once, one that has long since outlived its usefulness. A metaphor. Imagine your competence as a house you built yourself. You laid every brick. Every crack, every imperfect joint, every wall that took 3 attempts to get right. A visitor walks in and sees a house. Solid, well-made, impressive, even. You see the cracks. The visitor isn't wrong. Neither are you. But you have confused awareness of imperfection with evidence of inadequacy. They are not the same thing. A builder who sees the cracks is not a fraud. They are a builder who knows their craft well enough to know where the work continues. 5 principles. Each one targeting a specific mechanism, not the symptom, but the source. Principle 1. Build an evidence archive. The brain is running an audit, but it's cherry-picking the data. It files away the failures. It dismisses the successes as luck. The intervention is to make the audit honest. Create what psychologists call an accomplishment record. A written log of specific things you did, decisions you made, problems you solved. Not a brag file, a data file. The specificity matters. Not, I did well in that meeting, but I identified the flaw in the proposal that no one else noticed and redirected the conversation. The brain's attribution system is vague by default. Specific evidence resists vague dismissal. When the voice says you just got lucky, the archive says, here is what you actually did. This works because memory is reconstructive, not recorded. Every time you access a memory, you rewrite it slightly. Written records exist outside that process. They are harder to revise. Real-life example. At the end of each week, write down 2 specific things you handled that required genuine skill or judgment, not achievements, actions. I stayed calm when the client pushed back and found a middle ground in real time. That specificity is neurologically anchoring. Principle 2. Name the attribution error out loud. When you catch yourself explaining away a success, name it. Not harshly, clinically. I notice I'm attributing this to luck. This is based on the ACT principle of cognitive diffusion, the process of observing a thought rather than inhabiting it. The brain cannot hold 2 perspectives simultaneously at the same level. When you step back and observe the attribution error, you weaken its authority. You are not arguing with it. You are reclassifying it. Not truth, but pattern. Not evidence, but habit. Research on metacognitive therapy shows that this kind of labeling, noticing the thought process rather than the thought content, reduces the emotional charge of negative cognition significantly. Real-life example. You finish a presentation. It went well. The automatic thought arrives. They were just being polite. Before accepting it, say out loud or write, I notice I'm dismissing that. What would I say if someone else gave that same presentation? Use the third person. The brain is more accurate about others than about itself. Principle 3. Renegotiate the condition. This principle goes to the root. If the core belief is I must perform to be acceptable, the long-term work is not to perform better. It is to question the condition itself. Schema therapy, developed by Carl Jung, identifies conditional worth schemas, deep belief structures formed in early experience that operate as if they are facts about reality. I am only valuable if I succeed. I am only safe if I appear competent. These schemas are not conscious philosophies. They are neural architectures, built through repetition, felt as truth. The renegotiation begins with one question, asked with genuine curiosity. Is there a version of me that is acceptable even when imperfect? Not as an affirmation, as a real inquiry. Because the brain cannot update a belief it has never been asked to examine. Real-life example. Think of someone you genuinely respect and care about. Now imagine them making a significant mistake. Does your respect dissolve? For most people, no. Now apply the same standard to yourself. The discrepancy you feel is the schema. The gap is where the work lives. Principle 4. Let incompleteness be visible. Selectively, the impostor pattern is sustained by concealment. By maintaining a performance of certainty in every context, the antidote is not wholesale vulnerability. It is selective disclosure, choosing moments to let incompleteness be seen. Researcher Brené Brown's work on vulnerability shows that controlled, contextually appropriate disclosure strengthens connection and reduces shame's power simultaneously. Shame, like most emotional states, intensifies in isolation and loses force when witnessed. When you say "I don't know" in a context where not knowing is survivable and nothing catastrophic happens, the nervous system updates its threat assessment. Incompleteness did not end the relationship. Not knowing did not result in rejection. These small data points accumulate. Over time, they begin to revise the schema. Real-life example. In a meeting where you genuinely don't know something, instead of deflecting, say, "I'm not certain about that. Let me look into it and come back." Notice what happens. Most often, respect, not collapse. Let the nervous system see that. Principle 5. Decouple identity from outcome. The deepest sustaining condition of imposter phenomenon is this. Your sense of who you are is tied to what you produce, which means every outcome is an identity event. Every success is temporary proof you exist correctly. Every failure is evidence you were right to be afraid. ACT psychology distinguishes between the conceptualized self, the self defined by roles, achievements, and social evaluation, and the observing self, the stable awareness beneath all of that. The observing self does not succeed or fail. It simply is. Building a relationship with the observing self through practices like mindfulness, reflective journaling, or even just pausing to notice the one who is noticing creates a psychological anchor, one that does not move when outcomes fluctuate. This is not detachment from ambition. It is the construction of a self that can be ambitious without being defined by the results of that ambition. Real-life example. At the end of a day that went poorly, before the audit begins, ask, what was present in me today that was true regardless of the outcome? Patience, effort, care, curiosity. These are real. They existed whether the outcome confirmed them or not. Name them. They belong to you. Section 6. Integration. Come back to the house. You built it. You know its imperfections because you know it well. But it is standing. It has weathered things. People have found shelter in it. And you, the builder, have been telling yourself it doesn't really count. That someone else would have built it better. That it was mostly luck the walls held. The 5 principles are not about convincing yourself you're perfect. They are about making the audit honest. Recording what you actually did. Naming the moment you dismiss it. Questioning the condition that says you must be flawless to be real. Letting incompleteness be seen and discovering it does not end you. And building a self that stands independent of what any single outcome decides. The fraud feeling will not disappear overnight. It is an old tenant. But old tenants can be given notice. Not through force. Through evidence, accumulated slowly, until the brain has no honest choice but to revise what it believes about you. You have been working very hard to prove something, for a very long time, to a standard that was never clearly defined, to judges who were never fully named. Visual, empty courtroom, no one in the seats, just the room, just the light, and the verdict has never quite arrived, because the trial was never designed to end. That is the nature of an internal standard built on the belief that you are not yet enough. It cannot be satisfied, because satisfaction was never the goal. The goal was vigilance, alertness, never resting too long in the comfort of being enough, because comfort might lower your guard. What I want to offer you is this. The vigilance kept you safe once. It helped you prepare harder, care more, refuse to be careless with things that mattered. But you no longer need a fraud trial running in the background of every achievement. You don't need to earn each moment of belonging from scratch. You were not placed here to perform your way into worthiness. You were placed here already. Already present, already real. Already someone whose effort and care and imperfect, ongoing work are evidence not of inadequacy, but of a life being genuinely lived. The voice may come back, it probably will, but now you can hear it differently. Not as truth, as an old habit, one that no longer gets the last word.